And we are back here on Open. Daren Jaime here with you, and we are continuing to bring you content. And of course, it's not the way that we normally have it in studio. All of us have to come virtually, but we're grateful that we can still be able to bring you a virtual show, bringing you news, information, and the things that you actually need to know during this time as we all try to navigate the effects of COVID-19. And when we talk about COVID-19, so many people are affected. We talked about school students, right? And we talked about elementary school and how they've had to adjust to online learning. But when you take it up one step further, we go to college students, and college students have been adversely affected when it comes to being able to do distance learning and online learning. And so we've got two assembly members that have been working very hard and very diligently in helping particularly students at Bronx Community College be able to navigate that digital divide. And we're pleased to have two very special assembly members, Nathalia Fernandez, who is from the 80th district, and it's good to have you as well. And then we also got Assemblymember Victor Pichardo from the 86th Assembly District. And both of them have been very adamant and strong supporters of Bronx Community College, providing grants so that way we can have that digital divide, that gap closed a little bit. And so thank you most for coming and sharing with us here on Open. Good to have you both. Two at one time.
Yes.
Yeah, so we're gonna make this work. So I'm gonna go ladies first, right? And Assemblymember Fernandez, please talk to us a little bit about BCC, because you guys felt it was important to really tap into BCC and to be able to do some things for students.
Absolutely. Well, BCC is one of our historical institutions, a great institution that has done so much for students in the past, and we're trying right now. And, we want to keep that momentum for the future, near and far. And, the transition to remote learning was a shock to a lot of us. We saw our elementary schools and high schools, adapting to it. The city quickly went to purchase more tablets and laptops, still not enough, but I do believe it was forgotten for our college students, in our CUNYs and all that, and making sure that they have the laptops, because the difference is colleges have a campus, and anybody that didn't have the means, they could stay on campus and utilize the resources there. But now that we're stuck at home, it really limited a lot of students, students in my district, I know Victor's district, all over the Bronx, really. And something had to be done. So to be able to help a little bit right now with what we have was really important, because this is the time to just make sure everything possible is possible right now.
Yeah, and it's great because so many people are coming together. And Assemblyman Pichardo, talk to us a little bit about that importance, because when we talk about BCC, it is that engine towards upward mobility, right?
Sure. Well, first of all, this is something I want to thank my colleague, Assemblymember Fernandez, for supporting the students, not only a lot of her constituents, but many of mine who attend this hallowed institution. First of all, when we spoke about the digital divide, it's not just simply access to hardware, it's access to software as well. And in most CUNY environments where, you have to have some sort of proprietary software to engage in Blackboard or submit assignments and stuff like that, maybe the technology that you have at home or at your cousin's house or at your titi or at your grandma's house or whatever isn't adequate for you to do your work. So putting this money forward, first of all, is important to make sure that the students have the actual ability to do their schoolwork. It's not just giving someone a laptop full stock. It's a laptop that has all the CUNY software that they need to continue their education. And right now, like a lot of parents are struggling just to have access to that technology. It's important that we try to take and ameliorate that issue as best as we can. And again, just putting money forward and making sure that we purchase this technology that is loaded with the appropriate software so people can continue their education. It's not only important for them, but also just to make sure that people feel a sense of continuation and normalcy in pretty extreme and very difficult times.
Yeah. And when we talk about what's going on here in our borough, obviously BCC and many of our educational institutions here in the borough of the Bronx are in communities of color. And there are some huge racial disparities that come when it comes to, this virus. We know that the virus is impacting predominantly, communities of color. And when it comes to testing, that question still begins to loom out there. I know both of you have been very vocal and both of you have been very concerned about that. So give us a little bit about your take on the racial disparities, particularly here in our borough.
When you have an economic crisis, the people tend to suffer the most are the people in the communities of color and the folks who are dealing with the disparate economic climate in times. When you have a health crisis or a medical crisis, the people who tend to suffer the most are the communities that myself and Assemblymember Fernandez represent. And it's not something that's new. It's something that's been predictive, and it is as old as time. Government has to step up. Government has to do a better job in dealing with a lot of the disparate issues, not during only a pandemic when there's an emergency, but also the issues that happen during regular times. You know, we need better access and better technology for our students. We need better schools for our students. We need to equip our teachers with better equipment. We need hospitals that are supported and have the funding that they need to continue to support our communities. We need better resources overall. And again, we talk about the Not 62 campaign, which myself, Assemblymember Fernandez, and the borough president have participated in and pushed forward in pushing that disparity of that the Bronx is left behind in terms of the best economic health outcomes, and then is number one for the worst health outcomes. And this COVID-19 outbreak and epidemic has laid that bare in very, very stark and deep contrast in the rest of our state.
Yeah. Assemblymember Fernandez, of course, talking to us about the racial disparities too, but then also, you know, give us a little bit about what we're seeing in your assembly district.
Well, my assembly district is, I want to say, surrounded and filled with our most of our hospitals and healthcare institutions. I have Jacoby, Einstein, right outside Montefiore Moses, and North Central Bronx. And my district makes up a lot of essential workers, healthcare workers. So I think that kind of adds to a reason why my district has high numbers of positives, but also understanding that our essential workers and our healthcare workers, most of the time, are people of color. And, you know, we've seen the what's the word I'm looking for? The realization that, you know, our essential workers are, you know, now deemed essential. Before it was just service and, you know, low, not so special jobs, a grocery worker, cashier. But now in this pandemic, these are the important jobs. But the people that have these jobs, you know, a lot of the time, and history can tell you, these were the best that, you know, were available to us. These were the best jobs that could provide us benefits and security and all that. So to see that the numbers show that large numbers of Black and brown communities are affected of it, it could be, you know, that I think is added into the history of not getting better accessible healthcare, affordable healthcare, that our communities are food deserts. You know, we don't have, still now, we don't have like Trader Joe's and Whole Foods and stuff. So for a long time, it's been kind of adding up to this moment to now in this pandemic, you know, we really see how it hurt us, how the system has hurt us.
Yeah. Talking about the system hurting us, a lot of people are not happy with the New York State budget, the things that were actually passed. I want to get your take. We've heard several legislative officials say, listen, when it came to the budget, it definitely was not all that we wanted to see happen. Give us your take on the budget, Assemblymember Fernandez first, because when we talk about even cuts to Medicare.
Well, the budget was tough, you know, physically going through it, morally, emotionally, like it did kind of weigh on me a little bit, like what to do in this pressing time where we need to do everything that we can, in my opinion, as legislators to save the public, protect the public. Medicaid was the biggest need, in my opinion, especially coming up to the point of, you know, this pandemic starting. And it wasn't right. Like, I understand that the state is broke. You know, we knew we were low on funds earlier before we started session. And then at the point that the budget had to be passed, you know, we really knew we had no money. But I felt that it could have been negotiated differently. We should have really done everything that we could to make sure that we protected our healthcare in this state, for the fact that we are the epicenter in the country and I guess the world for this crisis.
Yeah.
It was hard.
Yeah, Assemblymember Pichardo?
Well, this is probably in my 7th legislative term that I've been in office, starting in 2013, 2014. This is probably one of the most difficult budget exercise that I've ever participated in. There was a lot of not only bad stuff in this bill, there was a lot of terrible politics. Much of it I did not agree with, especially on this conversation regarding the issue of bail reform. And again, there was this politics that ruled, particularly in the New York State Senate, that for their own politics they needed to do something to assuage a specific constituency, which that's their politics. But here's why there were important things in the budget that, if it didn't pass, it would have exacerbated the health crisis. There was about $250 million for distressed hospitals. One of those distressed hospitals, particularly one of the most distressed hospitals in the state, is St. Barnabas. If we were to prolong and push back and go back and forth on this budget process, we would probably lost that money, and St. Barnabas would have had to go down, which meant that the issue of communities of color having less access to healthcare would have been exacerbated tenfold. St. Barnabas is, by the most part, a sort of majority, not only indigent care, but Medicaid population. And the cuts that went forward were terrible, but if the hospital closed, it would have been 10, if not 100 times worse. So besides the bad politics, besides all the other nonsense that was put into this budget, I thought that it was important to make sure that not only government continued to function, but rather that these hospitals received the money that they needed in order to serve this population. But I will say this, that this isn't the end of this political process. I will look forward to working with my colleague, Assemblymember Fernandez, as many of my colleagues, particularly in the Assembly majority, in making sure that we right a lot of wrongs, but more importantly, when we get back to a sense of normalcy, that we get back to making sure that the priorities of New Yorkers across the state, whether it's in the Bronx or in Buffalo, that we focus on what needs to be done instead of the nonsense politics that took place in this budget process.
Yeah. I got to go in a few seconds, but I want to get your final comments on this issue right here. Small business. I mean, we're hearing a lot of people upset, frustrated about the PPP program and the amount of money that actually came. Small business is the lifeblood of the borough of the Bronx, and it's the lifeblood of America. But when we look, you get Ruth Chris to get to $20 million payout. Last time I checked, I didn't think they were small business.
Yeah, that's a big issue that needs to be fixed. I know there's already conversation with, current congressional members about what to put in the next package, because the problem was that, yes, our small businesses, our mom and pop shops, they didn't get any of this money, and there was no way of them to get the money based on the requirements. I'm hearing with certain paperwork that, almost was impossible, I guess, for them to get. So it's really important that this next stimulus package, CARES package, whatever you want to call it, is broken down, that our small businesses get the grants that they need to sustain and reopen once this is done. So it's terribly critical that we make sure they get it.
Mm-hmm. Assemblymember Pichardo, talk to us about your area, small businesses deeply impacted.
Sure. Well, I represent a lot of taxi drivers, a lot of bodegueros, and a lot of supermarket workers and supermarket owners in my particular district. I was on a conference call till about 11 o'clock at night with Congressman Adriano Espaillat and many of my colleagues in the city and federal level. And first of all, I want to thank the Congressman for his leadership in Washington and pushing that, make sure that we put more money that actually goes directed into small businesses that impact our community. So again, we need to make sure that the federal government steps up, puts more money into these programs, and that it takes away from having sort of the Ruth Chris steakhouses or even the Shake Shack, who apparently returned $20 million in relief that they didn't need, because there were a lot of loopholes put into the first stimulus package that the feds put together. But we need to make sure that we narrow the language and that it actually helps small and micro businesses in our districts, and that we hope to go back to Albany in hopefully the next few days or so, to see what the state can do to help support that work as well.
Mm-hmm. Assemblymember Fernandez, before we leave, I want to get an opportunity for you to tell your constituents in your area, how do they get in touch with you if they need resources during this time and season? Although we are not maybe physically in the office, I know the office is still working.
Yes, office is still working. We are open every day, messages, all that. So many ways to contact me. If you call the office phone number, it does get redirected to myself or a staffer. and that number is 718-409-0109. We have an email, district80@nyassembly.gov. Please, send anything to that. Also on social media, you can message either one of the handles on Twitter, Fernandez4NY, on Instagram, Fernandez4NY, and on Facebook, Fernandez4NY.
All righty. Assemblymember Pichardo, you get the final word as to how people can get in touch with you in your district.
Sure, not a problem. Again, thank you, Jamie. Thank you, Nathalia. So you can follow me on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, Pichardo86. You can call me 718-933-6909. You can sign up to our newsletter. We put out a weekly newsletter, talk about what's the issue on coronavirus. We put a lot of information on social media, both in English and in Spanish, so people can follow. But if you have any questions, concerns, issues, or anything like that, you can reach out to our office. You either speak with me or you'll speak with some member of our staff, and we will try to resolve your issue as quickly and as efficiently as possible.
Well, thank you so much for sharing with us, Assemblymember Pichardo, Assemblymember Fernandez, talking to us about, first of all, Bronx Community College. Thank you for the great work and empowering these students. I think they need the great help also during this digital divide. It does make the difference. And, of course, for the great work that you're doing with boots on the ground, trying to help Bronxites navigate through something that we've never ever seen before. So thank you both. All righty, we're taking a quick break here on Open. Stay with us. We've got more show coming up right after this.